yeah, I'll get to it tomorrow. Like, I'll wire the money tomorrow. It's not a big deal, you know? And he goes, I know, but if I don't cover the earnest money, then my contract's null and void. I need the earnest money. I'm like, wow, this is a significant problem. All these wholesalers are sweating me for their EMD. So I call a title company. Gator is a really silly name, and I'm glad it's a silly name because it catches people's attention. Where Gator came from, not that you care about the history, but I'll give you the history. I was a contractor for a number of years. About 10 years I was a contractor. I built houses for Open Door and OfferPad, did all their flips, did all that kind of stuff. And a subcontractor come to me, his name's Ruben, and Ruben says, hey, I'm short on payroll this Friday, will you cover my payroll? I go, yeah, sure, what do you need? He goes, I need $6 grand. I go, yeah, I can do $6 grand all day long. How much do I get back? He goes, $6 grand. I go, I know I'm getting $6 grand back, dude, but like, how much am I getting? He goes, no, I'll give you $6 grand, your money back, plus $6 grand, I'll double your money. I'm like, no way. You'll really do that? When will you pay me? He goes, Tuesday. I'm like, okay, what's going on? He goes, well, the check that I received from one of my other contractors I'm working for has a hold on it for a week. So I can't cover my payroll, I just need $6 grand. I'm like, okay, yeah. I cover the $6 grand, Tuesday, I get $12,000 back. I'm like, oh my gosh. So I started playing bank for all my subcontractors. And before long, I was making more money on being the bank than I was actually being the contractor. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is great. Well, long story short, I ended up getting out of construction and just buying real estate myself. And so no longer am I a contractor. I get into real estate and I start running into these people, wholesalers bringing me a deal. And they go, hey, I got a deal for you. I go, great, I'll buy it, no problem. And they're sweating me on the earnest money. Like, dude, can you get the earnest money in like right now? I go, yeah, I'll get to it tomorrow. Like, I'll wire the money tomorrow. It's not a big deal, you know? And he goes, I know, but if I don't cover the earnest money, then my contract's null and void. I need the earnest money. I'm like, wow, this is a significant problem. All these wholesalers are sweating me for their EMD. So I call a title company and I end up asking them, I go, is this a problem you guys are running into all the time where wholesalers are opening escrow? They haven't found a buyer yet. You know how wholesale works, right? Okay, so these wholesalers, they're talking to the sellers, they're getting the house under contract. They have no buyer at all, zero. In fact, they get a house under contract, they don't even know if it's a good deal or not. They then go to YouTube and they go, how do I find a buyer? This is literally what's happening. So I call the title company, is this a significant problem? I go, it's a major problem. Like, the problem is if we open escrow on these deals and we don't force the wholesaler to give us EMD and we get audited at some point as somebody who wasn't requesting their EMD, even though it says it in the contract, we could get into real trouble and like lose our license. So a couple years later, I buy a title company and I found out that over 80% of our contracts that were coming in, nobody was putting in EMD. And I was like, we are not letting this happen. Yeah, I'm like, I'm not gonna let this happen. So I started calling the wholesalers. I had a girl named Jen on my team. I just told Jen, I said, Jen, call every wholesaler that opens escrow and say, we will cover their EMD loan as long as we can JV with them on disposition. And we'll get $1,000 or $2,000. And all of a sudden my title company starts I'm making like $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a month just covering EMD. So what was happening is the wholesaler, they go get this contract, right? And they take this contract, they open escrow at my title company, and they've got maybe $1,000 EMD that is a requirement on this contract. And if they're working with an agent, let's say that they ended up getting the contract from an agent, right? And here's the purchase and sell agreement. The PSA for the agent typically will require 1% of the purchase price will be the EMD. So started seeing a lot more EMD somewhere around like 5,000 range. So I came in kind of as an outside person, even though I owned the title company, I just came in as an outside person and I just left $50,000 sitting in my title company that we could just cover the EMD. And I just started JVing with these people. So I'd go to the wholesaler and I'd say, hey, two things. One, I want to JV with you and whatever your wholesale fee is, their average wholesale fee is 15 grand. I want a chunk of that $15,000. I don't want to charge you interest on the EMD. I don't want to be a lender. I want to JV with you as a partner because I don't want to mess with usury law or any of that kind of stuff.
So the margin's $15,000 in the deal.
The margin for his contract, so if he finds a buyer, right? Buyer comes in.
15K is a margin.
Right. So this is their buyer, and the buyer comes in and wipes out the EMD when they find that buyer. So out of that 15 grand, I was typically taking about $3,000 to $4,000 on that fee. Now, it's gone down a little bit because I've basically created competition. Kevin, you've got a deal closing today on a Gator deal. How much are you making?
It was supposed to be $5 grand and $2,000 return, but I got negotiated down to $1,000.
So he put up $5 grand and got $1,000 back. So he made a 20% return in about 7 days. So you look at that over the whole entire year, you're looking at like 4,000% return. It's crazy. Okay, so there's a contract that's drafted between me and the wholesaler, and we call this the JV agreement. The JV agreement gives me control over the deal. So if their purchase and sell agreement gives me a 10-day inspection period, I, as the JV partner, can cancel at any point during that inspection period. Even though it's not my deal, I'm the JV partner, and I know when that 10 days is up. So I could either A, make money on the Gator deal, right, lending the EMD, or B, this is what a lot of smart Gators are doing, is they're saying, hey, let me go find the buyer, and I get 50% of your 15 grand. Because now I know that there's this situation where you don't have a buyer yet. Let me go to my buyers list. So you can make money two different ways. The easy layup way, obviously, is this way, right? It's just you're getting a portion of the JV deal, a couple grand. A little bit more challenging, you need more resources, is you can make an extra $5,000 by being the person that finds the buyer on the back end. So the wholesaler walks away making, let's say, in scenario 1, they walk away making 11 grand, right? It's a $15,000 fee. They take your $4,000 fee off for the JV, and they end up making $11,000 on something that they didn't have the ability to cover the EMD on. Now, if you also found the buyer, make an extra, let's say $5,000 on that deal. So the wholesaler's like, I got the contract, they make 6, and I end up making 9 because I not only loaned the money, but I also found the buyer. So it gets a little bit intricate based on who is doing what and all that kind of stuff. But the main relationship is here. I did this for a number of years as owning the title company. And this went on for a couple of years. And I'm like, man, there's so many other ways to get inserted into a deal. And I created other strategies, which is why Gator 2, Gator 3, Gator 4, all the way down. I decide, all right, this is Gator 1.0. Gator 1.0 is primarily earnest money. You're covering earnest money with the ability to have a vantage point over the deal where you could also find the buyer if you choose to do so. You don't have to. Most people, you're not ever finding the buyer, right? If you just want the lazy money, you want $2,000, $3,000, you want the lazy money, you just...
And you're getting that business from just other wholesalers within the ecosystem?
Yeah, like I wholesale 54 SubTo deals this year, and I know a lot of wholesalers in town, they just come to me for money. I make more money just lending just because it's like takes an hour, 2 hours a week, versus I spend like 40 hours, 50 hours a week just on wholesaling.
How much business of that you think is out there?
So like right now, I borrowed money because I ran out of my own funds.
Got it?
Yeah.
So here's what he does, okay? So I call this Gator wrestling, okay? So he's a Gator, I'm a Gator. So he runs out of money, he comes and wrestles my money away from me and says, hey, now what he's doing, essentially, right, here's me, the Gator, or here's Kevin, the Gator. Let's say Kevin does enough of these deals where he's like, crap, I don't have any more money. So what he does is he goes, hey, Pace, I need help on a deal. So he comes and gets Pace and he Gator wrestles me. And he goes, hey, I need $3,000 to cover this contract. So now the $9,000 that we have to potentially make, him and I then JV that 50-50. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so sometimes he's making $500.
But you do no work at this point.
I do
He's coming
zero,
to you.
zero,
Yeah, 'cause
zilch,
you're
yeah.
not-
And Kevin does some, and Pace does some contracts on the wholesaling. They want more of a $5,000 deposit, and say they want $15,000 to make sure they're serious. And there's obviously more spread on those bigger deposits.
I did a really cool deal the other day. They needed $2 million to sit in an escrow account for 12 hours.
Proof of funds.
Yep, and I made 50 grand, boom, like this, until the money comes back to me, just sitting in an escrow account that they can't pull out. Just has to sit there. They're getting a commercial loan, and the commercial lender wants to see this money sitting in there. So they paid me 50 grand up front to put it in there, and they're paying me 2 grand a day until the commercial lender tells me I can pull the money out. I got dozens of those a month. The way it's written is that nobody has the ability to send any money out or take any money except for me. It's just there so that the lender can see that it's sitting there. So there's a lot of those, okay? And one thing I believe in, like PMA for you, that my thing is what you focus on expands. And so the more I focus on these types of loans, the more people come to me and they go, dude, I need a loan like that. I need something like that. I've got a guy in Florida right now that's like, or not Florida, Hawaii. He's like, we've got a development. I need $15 million sitting in an account that my lender can come in and then release their stuff. And he goes, I'll give you $3 million for that. I'm like, huh? What? And you might go, well, you've never seen something like that? I'm like, I haven't focused on this long enough to see all the possibilities, right? The more I focus on it, the more crazy opportunities come around. And you guys know this, like being in the lending world your whole life, you see the weirdest deals and the weirdest structures and like, I can make money from that? Okay. There's a lot of that, like Gator 1.0 expands into big deals as well. Here's what I did, Bobby, you and I have talked about this for a good amount. So let's say, so this is Gator 1.0. You're gonna have to bear with me because I explained to you Gator 2.0 and some other stuff, okay? So that's Gator 1.0. So what I have is I go, all right, I'm a big community builder. I'm the biggest community builder in the like people, you guys know Russell Brunson? Okay, Russell Brunson calls me last Saturday, he goes, I need you to fly to Vegas. I want you to speak to my mastermind. These people came in here and they're paid 150 grand to be here for a day with me. I'm like, wow, what do you think I could teach them? He goes, I need you to teach them how you're doing community. Nobody in the country is doing better than this. I'm like, wow. So I decided with Gator back in March of last year, I said, all right, I'm gonna create a community where I don't create all the education up front and then release the education. I'm gonna release the education every 6 to 9 months. I'm gonna create a new strategy and then give it to the existing ecosystem, right? So as of right now, Gator 1.0 has 7,000 people in this community since March of last year. I can recruit like nothing you've ever seen.
And what do you consider active in the community?
I'd say 40% are always active. Now, here's what's cool about my communities is that my communities, like the meetup that you're gonna see tonight, or that you guys watch me on social media that I do. I went to dinner last night with a guy that's been in my community for 3.5 years, and then I went last night with Jose, who's been in the community for 4 months, right? Our community spans from the day the 3.5 years is SubTo, right? Because I have a SubTo community and a Gator community. So my community sticks in, and what they'll do is they'll work in for 3 or 4 months, they'll get super busy with their business, they'll fall out of the community for a little bit. Not fall out, but like, you know, you get busy. Then they come back in, then they leave, then they come back in. They never pay another dollar because my purpose for them to be in the community is for all of us to do business together. Where do you get all your business? From the community, right? So I build an ecosystem where so many people are doing business together and they're bringing it, and it's all inclusive. It's all just inside the community, which is really, really cool. So I go, all right, I'm gonna build Gator 1, and instead of going and building 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and releasing it all at the same time, which is overkill, I then reignite the people who have already come in prior by calling them or DMing them or emailing them. We say, all right, or in the Facebook group, we go, all right, Gator 2.0 is launching, and these 7,000 people get, you know, half of them are active. The other half are like, oh my gosh, Gator 2.0 is getting launched, and now those other half get reignited and get recommitted. Does that make sense? I then continue to recruit. So by the end of the year, I'll have 11,000 people. So 4,000 people will join. Now, do they have access to Gator 1 and Gator 2? Yes. Okay, they don't have to pay $1 ever, because again, I'm trying to get people to do business with each other.